Read to you by AudioSloth Station. The new Spider-Man in town. Miles Morales was a student at Midtown High School in New York City. He was happy and had a thirst for knowledge, especially science. He was a young boy like any other, working hard and doing the right thing. But something soon happened that changed his life for good. While in chemistry class, Miles noticed that his good friend Peter Parker kept sneaking out of school. Miles grew suspicious, wondering if something was wrong with Peter. So one day, Miles followed Peter and watched as he snuck a mask from his bag. But it wasn't just any mask that Peter was sneaking, it was Spider-Man's mask. Miles couldn't believe it. When Peter was leaving school that afternoon, Miles called to Peter,
"Hey, Peter, where you headed?"
Peter awkwardly smiled back and said,
I've got an assignment for the Daily Bugle. I've got to go.
Miles followed Peter to a lab but lost track of him. Miles didn't notice a genetically altered spider slowly spinning a web and dropping down towards him.
Yeah!
The spider bit Miles right on the hand. Miles knocked it off. He knew instantly that this was no ordinary spider bite. Instead of getting ill from the bite, Miles soon discovered that it gave him spider powers.
I've got to figure out what this means. What should I do?
He ran home fast.
Think!
Miles told himself.
If Peter really is Spider-Man, then what did he do?
Miles searched for articles about the webbed wonder.
Okay, so you get powers. Check. Then what? You make a costume and you go stop bad guys? That seems obvious.
With that, Miles created his own Spider-Man costume and leapt into the city.
I can run on walls!
Miles yelled as he scaled the side of the building. He was enjoying discovering his powers, and climbing walls wasn't the only one. Miles soon discovered he had an amazing spider sense that warned him of danger.
What the heck?
Miles couldn't ignore the ringing in his brain. That's when he noticed the burglars running behind him. In that instant, what started off as fun became very scary. Miles had a really big decision to make. Should he run from the danger and stay safe, or should he use his new powers to try to stop the villains? Miles realised that if he was going to call himself Spider-Man, he was going to have to act like Spider-Man too. Much to his surprise, Peter Parker, as the original Spider-Man, was already on the case. One of the criminals was getting away, but Miles joined in.
Hold on, Helmet Head,
he announced.
The only place you're racing off to is prison.
Miles had powers to match Peter's and was easily able to contain the thief. It wasn't until the action was over that Miles realised just how much danger he was really in. He climbed to the top of the building and wanted to fade away, which is exactly what he did. This was a brand new power, one that even Peter didn't have. He camouflaged himself into his surroundings. Peter swung up to where Miles had been.
Miles, is that you?
Peter called out.
I recognised your voice. Believe it or not, I know what you're thinking. I went through the same thing when I first got my powers.
Miles was stunned.
You did? Sure I did,
Peter said.
My Uncle Ben used to tell me, with great power, there must also come great responsibility.
Peter tossed Miles something from his costume.
Here, you can have these extra web shooters for now,
said Peter.
Whoa, cool!
Miles said while testing out the web shooters. Miles looked up to Peter, figuring out what he should do.
Maybe I can follow you around for a few days,
he said.
You know, see how it goes? I think that's a good idea, but you can't go around calling yourself Spider-Man, Miles. That name's taken. Oh, I'm definitely Spider-Man,
Miles said, smiling again. The two swung off together to patrol their friendly neighbourhood. It wasn't long before Peter got them into quite a pickle, surrounded by some of the nastiest villains in New York City. And that's when Miles knew. He was born for this. The battle roared while Peter kept poking fun at the rampaging villains. Miles was terrified.
How do you keep joking in the middle of a fight?
He asked Peter.
Aren't you scared?
That's when Rhino grabbed Peter by the neck. Peter couldn't let out another word, funny or otherwise. Miles turned and let loose his newest and last power, another power that Peter didn't have at all. Miles would later call it his Venom Strike. It put Rhino down for the count and Peter was safe. Miles and Peter wrapped up the baddies in a little more than the usual amount of sticky stuff. Peter said,
"Come on, if you're not going to change your name, you've got to learn how to crack jokes. It's part of the job."
Miles scratched his head, thinking while looking down at the webbed up villains. Then he said,
"It looks like you've got yourself into a sticky situation. Evildoers?"
Peter sighed.
Wow, somebody called a doctor. You have no funny bone.